Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Ashtaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Om Gnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishekha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravaktatanda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare 331:16 Gnanam yad etad adadhat katamah sadevas Vaikalikam Tirtareshvanu Vartitamshaha Tam Jiva Karma Padavim Anuvartamanas Tapatrayopashamamnaya Vayam Bhajema. No one other than the Supreme Person regarded as a localized Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord, is directing all inanimate and animate objects. He is present in the three phases of time, past, present, future. Therefore, the conditioned soul is engaged in different activities by his direction. And in order to get free from the threefold miseries of this conditioned life, we have to surrender unto him only. When a conditioned soul is seriously anxious, get out of the influence of material clutches. So this is important. The Supreme Person Godhead, who is situated within him as Paramatma, gives him this knowledge: surrender unto me. So those who have surrendered unto Krishna, they are seriously anxious. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, give up all other engagements except for surrendering unto Krishna. All other engagements should be given up. It is to be accepted that the source of knowledge is the Supreme Person. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Matta smritir gnanam apavanamcha. Lord says, through me one gets real knowledge and memory, and one also forgets through me. The one who wants to be materially satisfied or who wants to lord it over material nature, the Lord gives the opportunity to forget his service and engage in the so-called happiness of material activities. Similarly, when one is frustrated in lording it over material nature and is very serious about getting out of this material entanglement, Lord from within gives him the knowledge that he has to surrender unto him. Then there is liberation. So simple, one who is serious surrenders. This knowledge cannot be imparted by anyone other than the Supreme Lord or his representative. So Srila Prabhupada is imparting this knowledge. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya instructs Rupa Goswami that the living entities wander in life after life, undergoing the miserable conditions of material existence. But when one is very anxious to get free from material entanglement, he gets enlightenment through a spiritual master and Krishna. This means that Krishna's super soul is seated within the heart of a living entity, and when the living entity is serious, Lord directs him to take shelter of his representative, bona fide spiritual masters. The important part is take shelter. Doesn't just mean initiation. Actually, of course, the word initiation means shelter, but not the way it's being done today. Directed from within and guided externally by the spiritual master. Again, very important. Guided. One attains the path of Krishna consciousness, which is the way out of the material clutches. Therefore, there is no possibility of one's being situated in his own position unless he is blessed by the Supreme Person of Godhead. Own position meaning as a servant. Unless he's enlightened with the supreme knowledge, one has to undergo the severe penalties of the hard struggle for existence in the material nature. But it's very interesting actually. We read these things so many times, but somehow still doesn't seem to register. The spiritual master is therefore the mercy manifestation of the Supreme Person. The conditioned soul has to take direct instruction from the spiritual master, and that is a mercy. And thus he gradually becomes enlightened to the path of Krishna consciousness. Seed of Krishna consciousness is sown within the heart of the conditioned soul. Guru Krishna Kripai Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. That seed is sown within the heart of the conditioned soul. And when one hears the instruction from spiritual master, that seed fructifies and one's life is blessed. So Prabhupada is again very, very clearly highlighting the importance of Shravanam from Gurus, we can say. Yeah. So this, so in this book, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, is only Shivram Swami Maharaj. He writes, what is this seed? This seed is actually transcendental knowledge. So that it is a seed of transcendental knowledge. So when we hear, so that seed fructifies. So seed just simply means transcendental knowledge, knowing our position, knowing position of Krishna, Sambandha Gnan, and then knowing that okay, to serve Krishna, I need to be under the guidance of a spiritual master and then getting initiated. Dehi anya deha vivare jataragni nasrg vinmutra kupa patito bhrisha tapta deha ichannito vivasitum ganayan swamasan nirvasyate kripanadhir bhagavan pradanu. Fallen into a pool of blood, stool, and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his own body scorched by the mother's gastric fire, the embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prays, "O my Lord, when shall I, a wretched soul, be released from this confinement?" The precarious condition of the living entity within the womb of his mother is described here. On one side of where the child is floating is the heat of gastric fire, and on the other side are urine, stool, blood, and discharges. After 7 months, the child who has regained his consciousness feels the horrible condition of his existence and prays to the Lord. Counting the months until his release, he becomes greatly anxious to get out of the confinement. The so called civilized man does not take account of this horrible condition of life, and sometimes, for the purpose of sense gratification, he tries to kill the child by methods of contraception or abortion. See, contraception is also killing the child. Unserious about the horrible condition in the womb, such persons continue in materialism, grossly misusing the chance of the human form of life. So, this shows that even methods of contraception are also sinful, abortion is also sinful. And if this is not being followed, then it affects the Guru. And just to be clear, in spiritual life, after one gets initiated, sins go to the Guru, offenses go to the Jiva, goes to the devotee. Meaning, if we do offenses, we have to reap the benefit. If we commit sins, then it goes to the Guru. So we can commit offense and we can get degraded. But then what will happen is because of that, we will end up committing sins, and that will go to the Guru till the Guru disowns us. And normally Vaishnavas are so merciful, they don't disown, which means eventually all this will keep going to the Guru. So we have to be very careful. The word Kripana Dhihi is significant in this verse. Dhi means intelligence, and Kripana means miserly. Conditional life is for persons who are of miserly intelligence and who do not properly utilize their intelligence. The human form of life, the intelligence is developed, and one has to utilize that developed intelligence to get out of the cycle of birth and death. One who does not do so is a miser. Just like a person who has immense wealth but does not utilize it for Krishna consciousness, keeping it simply to see or to use it for himself, he is also miser. A person who does not actually utilize his human intelligence to get out of the clutches of Maya is accepted as miserly. The exact opposite of miserly is Udara, very magnanimous. A Brahmana is called Udara because he utilizes his human intelligence for spiritual realization. He uses that intelligence to preach Krishna consciousness for the benefit of the public, and therefore he is magnanimous. Mm. So it's simple. Whatever wealth we have, use it for Krishna. Whatever intelligence we have, use it for Krishna. Whatever skills we have, use it for Krishna. Whatever we have, just use it for Krishna. That's all. Mm. Then we'll become Udara. Otherwise, we'll become Kripanaji. येने दृशीं गतिमसौ दशमास्य ईश सङ्ग्राहित हृदयेन भवादृशेन स्वेनैव तुष्यतु कृतेन स दीननाथः को नाम तत् प्रति विनञ्जलिं विनाञ्जलिम् अस्य कुर्यात्. My dear Lord, by your causeless mercy, I am awakened to consciousness, although I am only 10 months. So now, from 7 months to 10 months, suffering is going on. For this causeless mercy of the Supreme Person of Godhead, the friend of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude but to pray with folded hands. As said in Bhagavad Gita, the intelligence and forgetfulness are both supplied by the super soul sitting within the individual soul, with the individual soul. When he sees that a conditioned soul is very serious about getting out of the clutches of the material influence, Supreme Lord gives intelligence internally as super soul and externally as the spiritual master or as an incarnation of the personal Godhead himself. He helps by speaking instructions such as Bhagavad Gita. Of course, the first mercy that the Lord shows to a sincere soul is to bring him to the association of devotees. And the Lord is always seeking the opportunity to reclaim the fallen souls to his abode. We should always feel very much obliged to the person who got it, for he is always anxious to bring us into the happy condition of eternal life. So the Lord wants to bring us into the happy condition of eternal life. Radharani wants to engage us in the service of Krishna so that Krishna is pleased. There is no sufficient means to repay the person who got it for his act of benediction. Therefore, we can simply feel gratitude and pray to the Lord with folded hands. This is the whole process of chanting. This prayer of the child in the womb may be questioned by some atheistic people. How can a child pray in such a nice way in the womb of his mother? Everything is possible by the grace of the Lord. The child is put into such a precarious condition externally, but internally he is the same, and the Lord is there. By the transcendental energy of the Lord, everything is possible. The important thing is to realize that irrespective of the type of body that we get, the Atma is always has so much of knowledge. Uh, Chit, but because of wanting just our desire to lord it over material nature, we have to come in touch with Maya for that, because otherwise we can't enjoy sense gratification. And when we come in touch with Maya, we're just covered by ignorance. So all this knowledge that the jiva, that the soul has, is simply covered up. So it's not lost. It doesn't have to be gained from somewhere else. It's just there, but it's covered. And that is the reason that the whole bhakti is just uncovering business. It's just uncovering. Bhakti is already there. It's just the contamination has to be removed. That's all. And the contamination is about just enjoying this world for my own sense gratification. That is a contamination, single contamination. There's nothing else. If we forget everything in Krishna consciousness, we can simply remember this. I'm suffering here because I'm just trying to enjoy, independent of Krishna. Instead of giving pleasure to Krishna, I'm trying to give pleasure to myself. This is the problem. That's all. Everything else is just stemming from this one thing. And that desire has caused us to be stuck in so much of ignorance that though we are so enlightened as the Atma, we are not able to, that knowledge is not manifesting. So we can also see how powerful Krishna's creation is. That this so much enlightened soul is just forgotten everything. Very pitiable situation. Pasyatyayam dishanaya nanu saptavadrihi शारीरकेदम शरीर्यपरः स्वदेहे यत्सृष्टया समतमहं पुरुषं पुराणं पश्ये बहिर्हृदि च चैत्यं इव प्रतीतम्. The living entity is in another type of body sees only by instinct, meaning he can't see. He doesn't have eyes, but he sees by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perceptions of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. So in lower forms, there's no way to control senses. There's no way to understand destination. It's only possible in the human form. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Person of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with his body, a human body, and by whose grace I can see him within and without. The evolutionary process is something like that of a fructifying flower, just as there are different stages in the growth of a flower, bud, blooming, full-fledged, grown up, stage of aroma and beauty. Similarly, there are 84 lakh species of bodies in gradual evolution, and there's systematic progress from lower species of life to the higher. The human form of life is supposed to be the highest, but it offers consciousness for getting out of the clutches of birth and death. The fortunate child in the womb of his mother realizes his superior position and is thereby distinguished from other bodies. Animals in bodies lower than that of the human being are conscious only as far as their bodily distress and happiness are concerned. They don't even have remembrance. They can not think of more than their bodily necessities of eating, sleeping, mating. But in the human form of life, by the grace of God, the consciousness is so developed that a man can evaluate his exceptional position, thus realize the self and the Supreme Lord. But the whole world is just living in animalistic propensities. That is the reason why Prabhupada was so concerned, so much paradukha dukhi. He used to experience so much distress by seeing the distress of people. And of course, it used to come out as very aggressive preaching, very strong statements. Because otherwise, nobody will wake up. Jeev jago, jeev jago. Gora Chanda bole. Otherwise, jivas won't get up. If you're just like coddling, speaking very nicely, softly, they won't get up. So Prabhupada used to be so heavy, so heavy. Because, this is the sleeping animalistic position. And we have to put effort to wake up people, for which we have to ourselves be awake. We awaken ourselves, then awaken others. The word Dhamma Shariri means that we have a body in which we can control the senses and the mind. The complication of materialistic life is due to an uncontrolled mind and uncontrolled senses. But we have a body in which we can control, not like animalistic bodies. One should feel grateful to the Supreme Person of Godhead for having obtained such a nice human form of body, and one should properly utilize it. The distinction between an animal and a man is that the animal cannot control himself and has no sense of decency. Whereas a human being has a sense of decency and can control himself. If this controlling power is not exhibited by the human being, then he is no better than an animal. So if we don't control our senses, then we are no better than an animal. By controlling the senses or by the process of yoga regulation, one can understand the position of his self, the super soul, the world, and their interrelation. Everything is possible by controlling the senses. Otherwise, we are no better than animals. We know dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat dharmena hina pashubi samana. But Prabhupada is saying, forget about dharma, even just normal, of course, that is also part of dharma, controlling senses. If you don't control senses, we are animals. Now this will be good impetus for us to work on sense control, because otherwise we are equal to animals. So we better try hard to control our senses. Actually, we don't have to try hard. We have to just engage seriously in Krishna consciousness. Automatically, the control will come. But if our lack of control is preventing us from engaging seriously in bhakti, then we hold on to uh, some other devotees. That's all, who are controlled, who are engaged. And just by simply engaging in this blissful process of Krishna consciousness, we can control. We can control. It's not so difficult to control. Just that we have to engage ourselves. If we engage in sense gratification, then we can't control. If we engage in activities of bhakti, then we can control. Then it's not very difficult. Real self-realization by means of controlling the senses is explained herein. One should try to see the Supreme Person of Godhead and one's own self also. To think oneself the same as the Supreme is not self-realization. Here it is clearly explained that the Supreme Lord is Anadi or Purana and he has no other cause. The living entity is born of the Supreme Godhead as part and parcel. It is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Anadir Adir Govinda. Govinda, the Supreme Person, has no cause. He is born, is unborn, but the living entity is born of him, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamshaha. Both the living entity and the Supreme Lord are unborn, but it has to be understood that the Supreme Cause of the part and parcel is the Supreme Person of Godhead. Brahma Samhita therefore says that everything has come from the Supreme Person of Godhead. Sarva Karana Karanam. The Vedanta Sutra confirms this also. Janmadhyasya yataha. The absolute truth is the original source of everyone's birth. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavaha. I am the source of everything, including Brahma and Shiva. And the living entities, this is self-realization. One should know that he is under the control of the Supreme Lord and not think that he is fully independent. Otherwise, why should he be put into conditional life? So, yeah. सोऽहं वसन् अपि विभो बहुदुःखवासं गर्भान्न निर्जिगमिषे बहिरन्धकूपे यत्रोपयातमुपसर्पति देवमाया मिथ्यामतिर्यदनुसंसृति चक्रमेतत्. Therefore, my Lord, although I am living in a terrible condition, I do not wish to depart from my mother's abdomen, to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. So on once the Jiva prayed, please, I'm in miserable condition, please help me. And now he's saying, no, no, I don't want to get out. I want to remain here only because otherwise again I'll fall into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy called Deva Maya at once captures the newly born child and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continual birth and death begins. As long as the child is within the womb of his mother, he is in a very precarious and horrible condition of life. But the benefit is that he revives pure consciousness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord and prays for deliverance. So, this is the benefit of us being in precarious and horrible conditions of life. So, when we are in a difficult condition, what is the benefit? That we revive our pure consciousness. We give up this attachment to this body and we become transcendently situated. So, that is the beauty of difficult situations. While we don't want difficult situations, but difficult situations are actually a mercy, isn't it? It will actually help us to actually raise above bodily consciousness. It's very, very useful, very helpful. But once he's outside the abdomen, when a child is born, Maya or the illusory energy is so strong that he's immediately overpowered into considering his body to be self. Maya means illusion or that which is actually not. In the material world, everyone is identifying with his body. This false egoistic consciousness of I am this body at once develops after the child comes out of the womb. So it's a natural thing. As soon as he comes out of the womb, Maya captures. Okay. So then Jiva says, okay, I am this body. The mother and other relatives are awaiting the child, and as soon as he is born, the mother feeds him and everyone takes care of him. Living entity soon forgets his position and becomes entangled in bodily relationships. The entire material existence is entanglement in this bodily conception of life. Real knowledge means to develop the consciousness of I am not this body, I am spirit, soul, an eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Real knowledge entails renunciation or non-acceptance of this body as the self. By the influence of Maya, the external energy, one forgets everything just after birth. And we remain in that forgotten condition for a long time. Many times even till death. Therefore, the child is praying that he prefers to remain within the womb rather than come out. It is said that Shukadev Goswami on this consideration remained for 16 years within the womb of his mother. He did not want to be entangled in false bodily identification. After cultivating such knowledge within the womb of his mother, he came out at the end of 16 years and immediately left home so that he might not be captured by the influence of Maya, family life, relatives, parents, etc. The influence of Maya is also explained in Bhagavad Gita as insurmountable. Maya Duratyaya. But insurmountable Maya can be overcome simply by Krishna consciousness. That is also been said in Bhagavad Gita. Mam eva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. Whoever surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna can get out of this false conception of life. By the influence of Maya only, one forgets his eternal relationship with Krishna and identifies himself with his body and the byproducts of the body, namely wife, children, society, friendship, and love. Thus, he becomes a victim of the influence of Maya, and his materialistic life of continued birth and death becomes still more stringent. So, simply by coming in touch with this material environment, we become full of false ego. So, look at how powerful Krishna's creation is. That just coming in touch with material world, we are fallen, we fall into illusion. So the only way to get out of this is to remain in Krishna consciousness all the time. Otherwise, Maya is ready to capture us any time. Because that's our job. Our job is to cheat Maya. So we cheat Maya by simply chanting Hare Krishna. Maya cannot touch us then. Okay, we'll stop here. Are there any comments, questions? No comments. Okay. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, जगत गुरु शिव प्रभुपाद की जय, वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनन्तकोटि वैष्णव की जय। Hare Krishna, I was sorry to mention. So tomorrow, forgot. Tomorrow we won't have class in the morning because we're actually having opening of a new center, preaching center in JP Nagar. So we have some services there. So I won't be available in the morning. Hare Krishna.